Hello, America. This is Call of Duty Goddess. Today is February 27th, 2016. I got an email from the Convention of the States Action Committee. When it first started a few years ago, I was curious about it, and I did like a group call thing and was going to volunteer and help out and everything. I thought it was a great idea. Of course, I had never read the Constitution either. So I was halfway in the dark about this. Anyway, when I was on the phone call with the man, it was a group phone call, I of course asked who would be representing us, how many people from each state will represent us. And he said, oh, one person from each state. And I then asked him, I said, well, who is this person? And he couldn't tell me. And just quite a few things like that. He couldn't give me a definitive answer to my questions. So I then thought something was fishy about it and didn't do anything with it. I did, however, keep on the email list just in case I changed my mind or found out more about it. And this, like I said, was like 3 years ago. Anyway, when the Malheur wildlife occupation first happened and they were talking about the Constitution and everything, I then read my Constitution and I realized how much rights we actually have. And the first thing that popped into my mind after reading my Constitution was, oh my goodness, this Convention of the States, it can't happen, you know? So I've had that in the back of my mind, and I still stay on their email list because I believe this could change our country. Because my concern is that you see the infiltration of the local government in Burns, Oregon. I have seen it in my area. In fact, I was going to try to get on the Board of Supervisors or Board of Education in my local area to try to do something about the corruption. Anyway, thinking about that, you don't really realize how corrupt your local government is until you really get out and look around. So this Convention of the States thing, my mind became made up after the Malheur wildlife thing, after seeing the local corruption really, which is everywhere. So, with that being said, I received this email just a few minutes ago about the Convention of the States and about Justice Scalia. His passing was a terrible loss to our country, it says, and he had profound wisdom and blah, blah, blah. And it says here, as it turns out, Justice Scalia was a passionate advocate for the Article 5 Convention of the States. And he writes in quotes, the founders inserted this alternative method of obtaining constitutional amendments because they knew the Congress would be unwilling to give attention to many issues the people are concerned. I would like to see that amendment process passed. And it says that, he did this May the 23rd, 1979. It also added in there, Scalia recognized that Article 5 is a precious right the Founding Fathers gave us in order to bypass an overreaching federal government. Okay, so I got that, and just so happens, and oh my gosh, my life is like this, it seems. Right before I got this email, I was looking at the YouTube for news. Well, I see this. This is from the YouTube channel Liberty in Our Time. Anyway, I went to the original article here, and of course I'll leave the links below. It seems like somebody is right on the ball with this, because this guy that wrote this article says that Colburn is telling half-truths. So at the time, he also worked at the American Enterprise Institute, members of which he was addressing when he spoke in favor of the idea of a limited convention. His full quote in 1979 reads, "So it really comes down to whether we think a constitutional convention is necessary. I think it is necessary for some purpose, and I'm willing to accept what seems to me a minimal risk of intemperate action. The founders inserted this alternative method of obtaining constitutional amendments because they knew the Congress would be unwilling to give attention to many issues the people are concerned with, particularly those involving restrictions on the federal government's own power. The founders foresaw that, and they provided the convention as a remedy. If the only way to get that convention is to take this minimal risk, then it is a reasonable one. So anyway, he was talking about a convention of the states. Now here we go in this video. It's from April 17th, 2014, and this is from Justice Scalia's own mouth speaking of this. So let's listen to this.
If you could amend the Constitution in one way, what would it be and why? Justice Scalia.
I certainly would not want a constitutional convention. I mean, whoa. Who knows what would come out of that? But if there were a targeted amendment that were adopted by the states, I think the only provision I would amend is the amendment provision. I figured out at one time what percentage of the populace could prevent an amendment to the Constitution. And if you take a bare majority in the smallest states by population, I think something less than 2% of the people can prevent a constitutional amendment. It ought to be hard, but it shouldn't be that hard.
Well, that was very interesting, especially seeing that email with my own two eyes that I got from the Convention of the States. Now, normally I would think to myself, you know, one of these people were lying, but it's blatantly obvious that the Convention of the States guy is lying. So that tells me, yet again, this is extremely dangerous. I guess my first instincts were kind of on target there. So anyway, I wanted to put that out to you. I'll leave both of these links below. If your state supports a Convention of the States, I would do something about it, because this is something that could really set us into a tailspin. Anyway, this is Call of Duty Goddess signing off, and as always, I've got your 6.